As you walk to the front door of the house, you can notice a set of footprints near the door. As you continue inside into the house, you then go into the east room. In the east room, you can see the two victims on the floor. As we zoom in, we can see blood evidence. We can see blood pool A and blood pool B. As we zoom out, we can see evidence I, blood pattern on front room wall. Now we continue into the east room. As we zoom into the eastern window, we can see evidence X, the fingerprint, as well as evidence P, the hair strand, and we can also see evidence Q, which is another hair strand. We can also see evidence G, a blood drop on the eastern window, as well as evidence J, blood drops on eastern window. When we zoomed in the east room, we could see a money chest, and there's hair evidence on the money chest as well, labeled U2. As we move into the parlor, we can see the hammer that contains evidence for DNA K, as well as a fingerprint V1 and V2. We can also see evidence K, which are blood drops on the hammer. As we move towards the back of the house, we can see a footprint leading to the eastern window, as well as a footprint E leading to the workshop. As we move towards the shed, we can see more footprints, as well as a fingerprint on the workshop door, evidence Y. This concludes our walkthrough. Hello, Marianne. Today I'll be asking you some questions. How did you know the Smiths?
I am the household help and Miss Smith's niece.
Where were you on November 18th, 1842?
I had left the house Saturday morning to go home and see my mother.
When did you come back for work?
I arrived back at the house on Monday morning, reporting for work as usual.
How long have you been working for the Smiths?
This was going to be my second year.
What was your job description?
I cooked, cleaned, and took care of the couple.
Did you enjoy your job?
Yeah, of course. I got to spend time with my my aunt, and they provided me with housing and food. They were a really nice couple.
Would you say that the Smiths were rich?
Yeah, they were pretty wealthy. Mr. Smith even had a money chest.
Did you have any friends at the farmhouse?
Yeah, me and Anton grew close because we lived on the same floor, so we often discussed our jobs and the Smiths.
Would you say that Anton enjoyed his job?
Yeah, he often talked about how grateful he was that the Smiths were letting him stay at the farmhouse, but he often talked about how he did a lot of work around the farm and thought he should have been getting paid more.
Did you ever see Anton get upset with Mr. Smith?
Not really, but there were some moments where Anton looked unhappy because Mr. Smith was mocking him for his English.
I see. Thank you for your answers. Where were you on November 18th, 1842?
I left the Smith farm and went to look for somewhere to sleep, but it was hard with the amount of money I had.
How did you know the Smiths?
I was their new farmhand for the month.
Were you born in New York?
No, I moved here on July 1st, 1842 from Germany.
Where did you stay during your work period with the Smiths?
They gave me a room in their farmhouse. I slept on the second floor.
Did you have a good relationship with Mr. and Mrs. Smith?
Yeah, they were really nice and gave me a job which didn't pay very well, and sometimes Mr. Smith would not mock me because I couldn't speak English well, but other than that, they were really kind.
When was the last time you saw the Smiths?
At our afternoon tea with them in Henry Bower.
Did you often get hurt during farm work?
Well, yeah, it comes with the job. You have to do a lot of grunt work, so there's no way to stop yourself from getting a couple of scratches.
Did you make any friends during your stay?
Yeah, there was this really nice lady who also lived in the farmhouse with me. Her name was Marianne Abbott. We often talked about the Smiths and our jobs in the farmhouse.
When you first moved to New York, where did you stay?
I was recovering from an illness for a couple of months, so I was in a quarantine for a while.
How did you find out about the farmhand job with the Smiths?
I was told that there was a lot of farm work to be done in Long Island, so I thought I would try my luck there, and I settled across their farmhouse.
Did you enjoy working with the other farmhand, Henry Bower?
Yeah, he was nice, but really old. I never really understood why he was getting paid more than me. I could get a lot more work done than him in half the time.
Thank you for your answers. Where were you on November 18th, 1842?
I had left the Smith farms and headed to find a new job.
Is there anyone who can testify on your behalf that you left the Smiths farm and didn't return?
Mary could, but she left to go visit her mom that day.
So what you are saying is no one can prove that your alibi is true?
Yes, that's correct, but I left the Smiths home and never came back, and I had to find a new place to sleep.
Did you have any problems with Mr. Smith?
No, he was nice and a caring man, but sometimes he would like to make fun of me.
What did he used to make fun of you for?
Well, since I had just moved to New York from Germany, I didn't know any English, so I struggled to speak to him. He would always mock me for my accent and my inability to speak correct English.
Did that bother you when he would make fun of you?
Yeah, it did bother me quite a bit. I thought it was a rude thing to say to someone who had just immigrated from a country where English was not spoken.
Do you know how to use farm tools like hammers, axes, and shovels?
Yes, I had to get quite experienced as they were a big part of my job when I worked as a farmhand.
You're a strong man, right?
Yes, I would say I'm well built, thanks to all my tree chopping and construction that I had to do.
How much were you getting paid for your job at the Smiths farm?
$4 a month of work.
Is that enough for all the work you put in?
No, I don't think so. So I think I deserved more for the amount that I poured in, especially because I knew that the Smiths could afford to pay me more.
How did you know that they could pay you more?
Well, Mary told me that Mr. Smith had money chest that he kept all his money in.
I see. How did you get that cut in your knee I saw earlier?
I fell into some glass outside when I was working.
I see. So where'd you say you were working? Inside the East Room?
Yeah, in the East Room.
So is that true? Didn't you just say that you cut your knee outside?
Well, I cut it both inside and outside.
How did you cut your knee inside?
Mary asked me to help her clean up some glass in the East Room.
But wasn't Mary at her mom's house?
Well, she asked me to do it before she left.
But Mary's mother says she was with her the entire time on November 18th, 1842.
Well, her mom's lying.
Are you sure? Or did you really cut yourself when you fell through the East Room window onto the glass sharple that you broke?
No, I didn't. I cut myself outside.
Well, I don't think that's true because we found your DNA on the East Room window sharple.
Fine. Yes, I cut myself when I fell through the window when I was breaking into the Smith's house. I deserved to be paid more, and they were just greedy and wouldn't pay me for the hard work that I put in, so I had to get the money myself.
You're guilty!
Can you state your name for the record?
Hello, my name is Kate Antonova, and I have a master's degree in criminology and blood analysis from Yale University. I've been working for the Miami Police Department for 10 years. I have taken and passed several courses on blood spatter analysis, fingerprint analysis, and blood typing.
Let's talk about blood type. Can you tell me where Alexander Smith's and Mary Ann Abbott's blood was found?
Their blood was found on the front room floor, wall, and on the east room floor.
How can you tell that it's their blood?
I can tell that this blood is comparable to Alexander Smith and Mary Ann Abbott because there was no agglutination to the anti-A serum, no agglutination to the anti-B serum, and no agglutination to the anti-RH serum. This tells us that their blood was comparable to O negative. And here I have some pictures.
Can you tell me where Rebecca Smith's blood was found?
Her blood was found on the eastern floor, on the front room floor, and on the hammer that was found in the parlor.
How can you tell that it's her blood?
I can tell that the blood is comparable to Rebecca Smith because there was no agglutination to the anti-A serum, there was agglutination to the anti-B serum, and there was no agglutination to the anti-RH serum. This tells us that her blood type was comparable to B minus. Here I have some more pictures.
Can you tell me where Henry Bauer and Anton Geisler's blood was found?
Their blood was found on the east room window, the axe that was found in the front room, on the front porch on the floor, and on the money chest in the second east room.
How can you tell that it's their blood?
I can tell that this blood is comparable to Henry Bauer and Anton Geisler because there was agglutination to the anti-A serum, no agglutination to the anti-B serum, and agglutination to the anti-RH serum. This tells us that their blood type was comparable to A+.
Can you tell me where Francis Curran's blood was found?
His blood was not found anywhere on the crime scene.
Now let's move on to blood splatter. What can you tell me about evidence A, blood pool A?
Blood pool A, which is comparable to Alexander Smith or Mary Ann Abbott, was found in the east room. This tells us that the victim, who was most likely Alexander Smith, was laying in that one spot for a long period of time and he was not moved. The victim continued to bleed heavily from his head because he was struck with a blunt object that caused a big wound.
What can you tell me about evidence B, blood pool B?
Blood pool B, which is comparable to Rebecca Smith, was also found in the east room. This blood pool tells us that Rebecca Smith was bleeding from her upper half, either her head or torso, because of the way the blood pool is shaped. It has multiple satellites and spines, which tells us that the blood was coming from somewhere high.
What can you tell me about evidence G, blood drop, east room window?
The blood drop is comparable to Henry Bauer or Anton Geisler. It was found in the east room on the window. By the way the blood drop is shaped, we can tell that it was dropped from an angle of about 40 or 50 degrees. This tells us that the assailant was probably climbing through a window when they cut themselves, and then the blood dropped onto the floor from an angle. The blood drop most likely came from the assailant's hand or arm.
What can you tell me about evidence H, blood drops, front room?
The blood drops in the front room are comparable to Alexander Smith, Mary Ann Abbott, or Rebecca Smith. The blood drops have several satellites and spines, which tells us that the blood drops came from a high distance, most likely the head or torso. Also, by the way the blood droplets are spread out, the victim was most likely moving during the assault. It is unclear if the movements were voluntary or not.
What can you tell me about evidence I, blood pattern on wall, front room?
A blood pattern on the wall, which is comparable to Alexander Smith or Mary Ann Abbott, was found in the front room on the wall. The blood pattern can tell us that the victim was hit multiple times because of the amount of blood on the wall and how spread out all the droplets are. It is most likely that the victim was hit while they were on the floor. The first couple of hits produced the most blood, which is why there are fewer droplets at the bottom of the wall. The more the victim was hit, the more cast off produced onto the wall behind them, causing the several other droplets.
What can you tell me about evidence J, blood droplets, east room?
The blood droplets are comparable to Henry Bauer or Anton Geisler and were found in the east room on the window. There are 3 different blood drops indicating that the assailant was moving while they were bleeding, causing the droplets to be in 3 different places. There is also a vast amount of satellites and skeletons, which tells us that the blood droplets fell from a high distance, either the torso or head. They were possibly produced when the assailant cut themselves while they were breaking in the window or climbing in.